and you're listening to Headline News. Today's headlines. Nevada evidence first presented in court hearings. Is the Georgia governor budging after seeing new evidence? Heavyweight Congressman backs Trump, revealing Pelosi's previous plans. CNN threatened to sue over recordings. Project Veritas exposes fake news. Threatening to punish Trump supporters, Daily Beast shows its true colors. The U.S. presidential election is in turmoil due to the alleged voter fraud. President Trump's team launched a large number of election fraud lawsuits in a number of states following the fraud hearings in Georgia and Michigan, which happened on December 3rd. The Nevada Court of Appeals held its first hearing on the election fraud lawsuit filed by Trump's legal team, with 12 witnesses and more than 1,000 sworn affidavits being presented for the first time. According to Trump's legal team, there is evidence that 19,000 voters had non-Nevada addresses, 42,000 voted twice, 15,000 voters had addresses for vacant or commercial properties, 8,000 ballots were cast using non-existent addresses, and 1,500 dead people voted. The testimony shed light on a variety of fraudulent methods, including USB flash drives that stored votes that were changed several times during the night without a login record, and violations by the U.S. Postal Service, UPS. The legal team hopes that the court ruling will prevent Nevada from certifying electoral votes for Biden. The court has asked the plaintiff's legal team to file a final complaint request by 10 a.m. on December 4th, and the court will rule after receiving the documents. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of people rallied to demand a fair election and the exclusion of illegal votes. A recent audit found that of the among 1,440 mail-in ballots in Nevada, 3% of them were fraudulent, including 2% from voters who never received a mail-in ballot, and 1% came from voters who didn't vote at all. In addition, an election watchdog found more than 40,000 questionable mailed ballots. Senate election continued. On the same day, hearings at the Georgia Senate election continued. During their testimony, Team Trump attorneys presented video evidence of ballot fraud, which caused a major reaction at the hearings. In an interview with Newsmax TV, Trump attorney Jackie Pick said a surveillance video provided by a security company at State Farm Arena in Atlanta exposed how election workers in Fulton County counted ballots without the supervision of poll watchers. The volunteer attorney said they got the footage at 1 a.m. and they were stunned when they watched it. The video clearly shows that while others were driven home and told to stop counting, some stayed behind. 4 staff members were still counting the ballots, and from time to time, several large suitcases containing thousands of ballots were dragged out from under the black cloth-covered tables. She stated that the evidence in this video is illustrative enough to overturn the results in Georgia. The next step will be to collect the election count logs from that time frame. It doesn't matter who those votes were cast for. What matters is that they violated Georgia law by not allowing Republican poll watchers and the media to be present. The first task for the legal team was to prove that there was an illegal vote count in the election. Witnesses at the hearing that day also revealed the following shocking numbers. 2,506 felons in Georgia voted illegally. 66,248 people under the age of 18 voted, and 2,423 were not registered at all. 1,043 used the same P.O. box, and 4,926 voted after the registration date. 10,315 died before the election, 395 voted in 2 states, 15,700 emigrated, 40,200 279 changed counties while not re-registering to vote. Some on social media have commented that the voter total frauds is 10 times the lead Biden has over Trump. Governor Brian Kemp seems to be backpedaling in the face of the fact that this video has come to light. He said in an interview on Fox's Ingram's Angle that he had asked Secretary of State Raffensperger to conduct a signature audit. Kemp told Ingram, quote, "I think it should be done. I think, especially given what we saw today, it raises more questions." He also said, quote, "I think in the next 24 hours, we will see a lot more from the hearings that the legislature had today, and we will be able to look and see what the next steps are." Kemp had been harshly criticized by President Trump, even claiming to be ashamed of endorsing Kemp in his campaign for governor. At this critical moment, President Trump can have some breathing room because many members of Congress openly expressed their opinions. Prestigious Republican Congressman Mike Johnson and Jim Banks recently had a web conference with host American Enterprise Institute President Robert Doar. They voiced their support for President Trump's continuing efforts to expose election fraud. Johnson, the current chairman of the Republican Study Committee, RSC, said, quote, "I'm a constitutional attorney, and I've spoken to the president myself about this over the last couple of weeks since the election, encouraging him to exhaust all the legal remedies because I think it's so critically important." He said, quote, "I'm literally getting text messages right now, Robert, while we're talking. People that are not watching our program right now, constituents of mine, who are texting me. It's coming across the top of my phone on this subject. Stand with the president, make sure the election is fair, and all that." Banks will succeed Doar as the new RSC chair. He emphasized that after Nancy Pelosi became the Speaker of the House in 2019, she's been pushing for an election reform bill. The Democrats labeled it H.R. 1, which means top legislative priority. He explained, H.R. 1 was a piece of legislation that would have nationalized elections and pushed all states toward mail-in ballots. He pointed out that the Democrats have been planning it for 2 years. The Democrats have pushed hard for mail-in ballots in the states that they control in order to benefit themselves, which ultimately led to the current controversy about election fraud. He suggested that the Congress should set standards to actually protect the integrity and security of elections. Banks also praised President Trump's policies of cutting taxes and rebuilding the military during his time in office. Project Veritas released a recording of CNN's morning editorial call. The conversations in the recording turned out to be similar to the deliberate smear and disinformation tactics that the Chinese Communist Party media often uses. It has allowed the world to see how the leftist media, which claims to be fair and objective, goes to great lengths to smear and discredit the U.S. president and the Republicans. After months of successfully recording CNN's morning meeting, Project Veritas released its second recording on the evening of December the 1st. In which CNN President Jeff Zucker gave clear instructions to his team on how to portray the president. Quote, "This is a president who knows he's losing, who knows he's in trouble, is sick, maybe is on the after effects of steroids or not. I don't know. But he is acting erratically and desperately, and we need not normalize that." In the October 9th recording, Zucker said, quote, "This is what we've come to expect for the last 3.5 years, 4 years. Maybe it clearly is exacerbated by the time that we're in and the issues that he's dealing with. He is all over the place and acting erratically, and I think we need to lean into that." Following Zucker, Vice President and CNN Political Director David Chalian also instructed his editorial team not to follow up on the scandal of Biden's family. "Obviously, we're not going with the New York Post story right now on Hunter Biden," he said. At Zucker's direction, Lindsey Graham has been the subject of an overwhelming amount of negative news. As for demonizing President Trump, CNN has been doing it for 3.5 years. As Zucker put it, this is what we've come to expect for the last 3.5 years. After the tape was released, CNN President Zucker threatened to charge O'Keefe. Fox News interviewed O'Keefe on December the 1st. Host Sean Hannity asked if Project Veritas won any lawsuits. "We have legal experts at Project Veritas, and we think that Jeff Zucker is just mad and embarrassed here for what we have exposed," O'Keefe said. O'Keefe then criticized that this is not journalism at all, but propaganda and manufactured content, he said. "I think CNN should apologize to the people. It's disgraceful." Another group of people on the same nature as CNN is spreading hate and even blatantly intimidating dissidents in the left-wing media. Recently, Rick Wilson, editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast, posted a column on his left-wing website in which he threatened to revenge people who supported President Trump. In his column, Wilson writes in a tone of hysterical hatred, "Only exposure, pain, humiliation, and incarceration will lead to a moment of reckoning for the GOP. It should start at the top and work down from there." Leftists have recently begun to prepare, gathering lists and making it Biden's first priority to revenge President Trump's supporters. Ironically, Biden himself is calling for Americans' unity, saying, "We have to stop treating our opponents as enemies." Jonathan Turley, a law professor at George Washington University, condemned the violence by members of the Democratic Party on his personal website. He noted that the left wing of the Democratic Party poses a growing threat to President Trump's supporters, lawyers, and President Trump's administration officials. Their actions pose a serious threat to the lives of Americans. Dan Crenshaw, a representative of Texas, had tweeted a video of Republicans being tormented by Antifa. He wrote, "The left uses violence, the right uses their voice. The difference matters. And all the DC businesses that boarded up their windows know exactly what the difference is."